Hi, everybody. Tom Van Hoy with Pitt State men and women's cross country coach Russ Jewett. Pitt stayed in the St. Paul, Minnesota area last weekend, the Roy Griak Invitational there. Men finished sixth, 8K race, 4.96 miles. Pitt State senior Adam Volkert in his first race won 25 minutes, 11 seconds, average 5:04 per mile, a 10-second win. Volkert, the MIAA cross country athlete of the week. Women finished third out of 34 teams, and senior Jessica Macy finished second. There were 350 runners. 21 minutes, 39.1 seconds. This is a 6K race, 3.72 miles, an average 5:49 per mile. She won the Missouri Southern Stampede the week before, also the MIAA Cross Country Athlete of the Week. Here's Pitt State Russ Jewett on the overall performance of his teams in Minnesota.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of our effort. It was a little bit of a long trip, but, we consider that a bonding opportunity. I think we did that. The weather was a little dicey on meet day, but you got to love that about cross country, I was fairly pleased with both the women's and the men's teams.
Well, tell us about the trip. I know last week you and I talked about 9 hours, and when did you go? And from a cross-country standpoint, do you break it up? Any chance to stretch or probably not even work out? But how did you approach that, I guess?
Well, we want to keep our kids in class as much as possible, so we left at 5 a.m. on Friday morning. We wanted to get there in time to review the course. That's sort of important for the new folks, especially to see what they're getting for the next day. So that's what we did. We ran into a little traffic up there. It was a little longer than we thought, but one day trip up there, and then you come back right after the competition. So the kids got back at 12:30 a.m. on Sunday morning. They're young. They recover.
Took you a little bit longer, did it?
Now that you mention it, yeah, a little bit longer than that. By now, I'm finally recovered, I think.
Well, when you got up there, what was the course like?
Well, it's a great course. It's a golf course owned by the university, and it's pretty challenging. It's the most challenging course we'll be on this year. No killer hills necessarily, but you're always going up or down. Some hills are fairly steep. There's some side hill running, which you're not really changing elevation on that, but you're trying to stay on the hill, so it seems like uphill running. And the course conditions were pretty good, other than it got really wet, and even for the men's race, especially for the men's race, pretty soft. But nothing that was a deal breaker for anybody, I don't think.
Does it make any difference what kind of shoes you wear?
Oh, it sure does. Yeah, if you wore just like road racing shoes and you were in the men's race, you're going to have some problems with the sharp turns and the steep downs and even the steep ups. You're going to slip. But most of our kids wear spikes or a racing shoe designed for cross country with sort of a waffle pattern on the bottom, so we didn't have any slippage problems. Adam Volkert wore half-inch spikes. That can be a challenge when you run across some hard stuff that might be on the course. And at a golf course, you had to cross a concrete cart path a few times, but it wasn't a big issue for him.
You talked a little bit about hills, and you said there weren't that many, but as you participate and you run into that, is there, I don't know if art's the right word, but is there a different approach to running uphill versus running downhill?
Well, yeah, there's different technique, but really what we try to figure out is each athlete's strengths on a cross-country course. Some athletes might be psychologically and physically adept at uphill running if they're strong, powerful, and they might be able to create a gap between them and their opponent on uphills. Others might be more fleet of foot and maybe do better on the downhill. You don't need a lot of strength to run downhill. You need a little courage and some quick feet. Others, the folks that are really true track athletes that compete in cross country but are long distance runners may do better on the flat and the hard stuff. So, we have kids we call mudders, those that may not have very, much speed but have good endurance and can really do well when it's soft and wet and muddy or hilly or things like that. So different sort of characteristics on each course can play to the strengths of different athletes.
Yeah, I mean, do they each have different strengths from the standpoint of maybe somebody can't go out fast and you'd rather keep a steady pace and finish strong, or in the case of many people that used to run cross country, you save it for the end. You always had a lot left.
Yeah, there are different strengths in that regard too. Cross country, sometimes the course and the number of runners in the race sort of dictate how you should race, whether you should try and find your position early, in other words, go out fast and hold on, or run an even pace and thereby probably passing quite a few folks in the middle and the end. But we really try to develop the skill of going out pretty aggressively and staying in position from the start. It's hard to do, especially with some kids that are used to running even pace in high school. There's that great feeling some kids have of, I'm always passing someone. And yet, in certain competitions, when you get to the end of a race, there are lots of gaps between you and the next runner, and it's hard to cover those gaps sometimes psychologically. So there's trade-offs.
Well, the men finished sixth overall in an 8K race, and if my math is any good, 4.96 miles.
Yeah, very
good debut by Adam Volker. You said he didn't run last week at the Stampede at Missouri Southern. Comes out, wins it, runs 25:11, which that's pretty good pace, isn't it? 5:04.
It is. It's good pace. It's about where he's training, especially under conditions. By the time the men's race was underway, it was raining pretty steadily, and it seemed like a cold front blew in right then, and windy, and I was really pleased. And Adam won as an unattached runner last year. He won the Missouri Southern Stampede. Good runners there, but I think there were better runners here. And I think this was a better test for him, and I was really proud that he, in the middle of the race, not at the very end. He didn't wait till the very end to try and outkick someone the last 100 meters, but in the middle of the race, he pulled away when, maybe in his sophomore or junior years, he might have had a little doubt. But I think Adam has really matured a lot in the last couple of years as a distance racer, and great race for him.
Okay, so he wins it, and then Chris Wise is 44th, 59th for Colin Hubert, 64 for Ethan Slavosky, and 72nd for Austin Bogina. But as I look at the numbers there, they were all within 21 seconds of one another. Did that how it played out? They run together as a pack, or are you all right with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Austin didn't have a great race this week. He had a really strong race last week, and that's the way it goes in our sport sometimes. But I like the fact that we have a tight pack there. We need to bring that pack closer to Adam. When you have a nice front runner, this 1 to 5 gap is not as meaningful that we sometimes talk about. But so we need one of those guys in that group of 4, and there's maybe even a 5th guy back there somewhere that need someone to pull that whole group a little further forward in an important race, and so that's what we're concentrating on now.
So is Adam? There's a pretty good difference there. We mentioned 25:11 versus 26:36 for Chris Wise. Is that a situation where Volker dominates in practice, or does he need to be challenged in practice? I guess, how does that work when you have somebody that apparently you have a pretty dominant runner there?
Yeah, in practice, he is more fit than these other guys. He's a little more talented maybe, but he's definitely more fit. He's a fifth-year senior. And a little bit of a challenge in practice. On the hard workouts, we do some things sometimes to sort of handicap things that helps us. But sometimes he just needs to be able to push the pace on his own, like he had to do in that race, at least for a little part of it. But we do some things in practice that we have him maybe start a little later on some reps or something like that, so he can chase somebody.
You mentioned the quality competition. Augustana wins it with 53 points. Then Wisconsin Lacrosse, Central Missouri was there, finished third at 124. Where in the world's Lakehead? They finished fourth, huh? Yeah,
they haven't. I haven't seen them around there, up in that high in the field lately. But I think they're in Minnesota. I people, come from all over, but I think that's a Minnesota school, and I don't know that they're a Division II school, but Wisconsin Lacrosse, one of the better Division III schools in our sport. So there's some good folks in this race.
San Diego was 191, and Pitt State 62-40. So how good's Augustana? They had 53 points.
Well, they're very good. They've been a podium team at the Nationals, and they're well coached, and their men's and women's programs are extremely good. So someday we're going to be hopefully competing head to head against folks like that. We're right now we're in a stage where we're on the way, I think.
Do you want to take your cross country teams non-conference to be tested?
Definitely, yeah. In our sport, you don't see too many coaches in this era that race their athletes every week, especially the men with the 10,000 or the 8,000 meter race. It's pretty tough on the legs and the body. So we have a few competitions before the conference, and so we want to make those work for us. And we do like to get to a competition where we're really challenged, and that's not hard to do. Most of these cross country meets are pretty big, because not everybody hosts a meet every other week like you see in team sports where you build a record. But yeah, it is important to find good competition for all your folks, and the right course too. I mean, if you have important meets at the end of the season that are really hilly, then you certainly want to prepare for that and either train a lot on hills or find competitions with some challenging hills so that you're ready for those demands too. This year, we don't have a conference, regional, or nationals that's extremely hilly at all. They're mostly flat to rolling. But this race we went to because we wanted to see some of that great competition from the northern part of our region.
Tom Van Hoy, the Russ Jewett men and women's cross country coach, talking about the trip up to Minnesota, and we talked about the men. Women finished third out of 34 schools, and Jessica Macy, who won the Missouri Southern Stampede, ends up second of this one. 350 runners, I think, in that. So 6K. So overall, how'd your women do?
Well, I was pleased with our effort, especially at the 6K distance. It's a kilometer farther than they raced last weekend, and it's our championship distance. And especially for the freshmen we took up there, sometimes that can be a mentally daunting thing to have to concentrate and hurt for 3.5 to 4.5 more minutes. But I was pleased with our overall performance. Jess Macy had the lead for a while in the middle, and then an absolutely supremely talented girl from Augustana. I can't remember which country she's from, one of the Nordic countries, but sort of ran her down from pretty far back. That girl placed in the top 5 or 6 or 7 or so at nationals last year, I think, that were in the foul. So I think Jess is a little disappointed that she got run down at the end, but it's something else. It's sort of a learning moment there for her to be able to respond to someone late in a race when you have a lead.
5:49 pace, pretty good.
Very good on that course. Again, you're always running up or down. And there was no mile-long hill or anything, but there was some steep stuff. And for the conditions, well, she wasn't too far off of the course record. Of course, even if she had broken it this year, she got beat, so she wouldn't have had it. But so it's one of the faster times in our division run on that course ever.
Is it on the women's side a little bit like the men? We talked about the difference between Adam Volkert and then the next Pitt State runner, and as you kind of look at it, Casey Epps was 21st, and at 23:29, about 2 minutes back, but then you had 3 runners that were within 11 seconds of each other. Yeah,
extremely similar. What we have to be careful of in a situation like this is complacency with, hey, we've got a nice front runner, we're going to be fine, and then if no one in that second pack, or really the first pack, the second through 5th or 6th runners, if no one wants to pull that group forward and they're all just satisfied with having a tight pack, then we don't score as low, which is good. I mean, we want to score low. You don't score as low as you could. So, and I think Casey's doing a good job. She hasn't been just sort of mulling around with the other girls waiting. She's been pulling that group through the last couple of meets, and hopefully she'll continue to do that.
Does it help to have experienced runners like Adam Volkert and Jessica Macy that kind of set the tone for your teams?
Absolutely. In a meet like this with a lot of numbers and some adverse conditions, kids that have been in that situation, or especially in that competition on that course before, helps to sort of calm the frustrations or the nerves of the younger kids, I think, and they probably perform better because of their experience, and that helps the team as well.
All right, what's coming up? You're off this week, right? Before you go to Hayes in 2 weeks.
We are. We're just training this weekend. With homecoming weekend, it works out great too. That we wanted a weekend when we didn't race. We did the 2 weekends in a row here, but we'll train really hard through the weekend, and then we go to Fort Hays State a week from this weekend. That's not a great big meet, a little more low key, but we get to see a conference opponent in Fort Hays State that we wouldn't otherwise get to see, and I think Nebraska Kearney will be there, and I think it's another opportunity to sort of take another step toward being a conference champion contender. That's our intent anyway, and we'll have some things to work on, of course. It's our last chance to use a race to really get ready for a conference championship.
Did you feel like you got better from week 1 to week 2?
Yeah, I think we did. As a team, we did. Now, a couple individuals probably didn't race as well this weekend as they did, at the Southern meet, but that's to be expected, when you're talking about 17 to 18 runners. But yeah, I think we did. I really do. I think our attitude was even better after this weekend than last weekend. So our kids sense that we took a little step forward as well.
That's Pitt State men and women's cross country coach Russ Jewett. Again, off this weekend, then at Fort Hays State the following weekend, October 12th. I'm Tom Van Hoy.